Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with Phil Putney and myself, talking investing, finance, retirement, and the camera's over there. And we're going to be talking about how overconfidence is the issue this week on the podcast. So overconfidence can lead to, what is it, the pride comes before the fall?
Yeah, pride cometh before the fall type. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. I got two cameras in here and I couldn't remember which one I'm looking at. It's this one. So we're going to do some conversation about this today. My thing's over here, my camera's over here, so I'm all over the place. How you doing, buddy? You doing all right?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Not doing too bad. It's Halloween week. So
yes, it is. It is
dropping this a couple days before Halloween. So I like Halloween. You like Halloween?
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's the time of the year. I mean, I can remember going out with the kids and it's 80 degrees some year and other years it's snowing, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Unfortunately, this, at least so far, has been one of those cold, wet, nasty type of Halloween weeks. So today's sun's out though. We're good. So who knows what the weekend brings, but
yeah, North Carolina loves to do this thing where it is really gorgeous the 10, 12 days leading up to Halloween.
Yep.
It's in the 70s, mid 70s, whatever the case is. Kids are super excited. And even typically what happens almost every year is Halloween itself, when they go trick or treating, it's like 70 degrees outside, 68, something like that.
Okay.
Sun shining when they start. And by like 8 o'clock, it's dropped to like 40 and it starts to, and then you got frozen kids.
Chases them all home. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess if you're tired of having kids at your door, it could be a good thing, right? So depending on how you look at it.
Our church does, they call it a trunk or treat.
Okay.
Where bunch of the members of the church will come in and they bring their cars in and decorate the trunk. And we line them up in the parking lot and then the kids come through. And it's kind of an outreach to the community. And years prior to this, and we had 400, 500 kids come through. Well, we held it Sunday and it was rainy and like 51 degrees down to 41 by the time it was a mess. So, but we still had, I think it was like 200, 250 kids come through, some of the diehards. So
yeah, definitely. That's fantastic.
It was crazy. So.
Well, we hope everybody has a happy and safe Halloween for sure. And so let's talk about how overconfidence can lead to some financial issues, Phil. So on my list here, let's start off with the market because that's the big one. Overconfidence in the market or your ability to manipulate the market. Either way, the overconfidence can be an issue.
Yeah. And I think probably a combination of two, as the market cooperates with you, you start to gain confidence in, anyone can do this. This is easy.
Yeah. Especially timing. This market.
Yeah. I was going to say perfect timing. So I just met with a client, a prospective client, just starting to work with them this week. And, he was telling me about, they finally got enough that, hit his number. He wanted to retire. And he made, it's like, 400,000 in the pandemic, because he panicked early, so sold everything when the market was down like less than 10%, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then jumped back in the market near the bottom, put a bunch into Zoom, which everyone knows what happened with Zoom over the pandemic. Everyone's on it. So the price went crazy. He made over 200,000 on Zoom.
Holy moly.
So he's thinking, this is easy. Everyone can do this. So we had a little bit of an eye-opening discussion on realities of the market. And
so he got really,
he was very lucky. He was
very lucky.
Fortunate.
He had great timing.
Yeah.
His timing skills are fantastic.
Yep. So, and usually that doesn't happen often, right?
Right. That's definitely the outlier.
I think he recognizes it when we were talking,
that's good.
So he wasn't too overconfident with it, but he's been investing for years. So
yeah. Well, and if that's, so I'm sure if you guys are talking, it's like, that's probably my big win, right?
Yes.
His biggest win. And it took something like a pandemic for it to happen. So
yeah. Which was great. Hey, got him where he wanted to be. And, fortunately it worked out that direction.
Well, so but for the most of us, right. We just, again, that's why something balanced, something structured, because a lot of times we're just not paying attention to this kind of stuff. We're busy doing the rest of our life.
Right.
So sometimes, we see an opportunity, we kind of want to jump on it, and that's fine, but just be careful that you're not waging, something that you can't afford to wage.
Exactly. I mean, especially as you get to the point of retirement. I mean, this gentleman's a great example. I mean, if it hadn't turned out the way he expected, I mean, he could have not been in the scenario who he's in today and not retiring and maybe having to extend that retirement date.
True. Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that's where a lot of people get caught when they're looking at the market, especially when we've been on this crazy bull run that we've been for, years now, since 2009.
Yeah.
Obviously some blips along the way, but it's easy to get overconfident and think, oh yeah, well, the market always goes up, right? I mean,
that's right.
Oh yeah, there's a little bump here and there, but it doesn't last long.
It never goes. Yeah. It never goes down. It only goes up now.
Not for an extended period of time, at least.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned we're not to pick on this guy, but since you mentioned he hit his number.
Yes.
So that's my second point is overconfidence in a number. Yeah. So typically we hear the $1 million thing. I need $1 million bucks, Phil. When I get $1 million bucks, then I can retire. Yep. Why is that, maybe not the right thing?
Who knows? I mean, there was a whole campaign by one of the big investment firms out there. You probably remember it years ago. What's your number?
Oh yeah.
Follow the line. What's your number? That whole thing.
It was like floating over their head.
Yeah, exactly. Line going on the sidewalk and, stay on the line, which, I mean, at the end of the day,
good marketing.
It was great marketing. Everyone still remembers it, I'm talking about it today even. But yeah, you have to understand maybe a number, but why? I mean, if you've run the math behind it and have the math behind it to say, okay, I need X amount to retire because, I know when I retire, here's how I'm going to take distributions and, mathematically, this is what it's going to take and it'll work.
Right.
But if you're in with this gentleman, again, I don't think it had anything to do with a number. It was more his confidence, and the funny thing is, his number was $1 million. Now he's like at $1.2 million now because the crazy market that he was in. Yeah. So, but and there's a lot of people that happens to be their number, which, if you're only spending 20 grand a year out of your account, you're right. You're good, but if you're spending 40, if you're spending 60, 70, maybe not.
It's a little different. Yeah. Exactly.
So it really comes down to what your number isn't the matter. I mean, or the point to look at it is what is your income need and where's it going to come from?
Yeah. Well, so you live in the Metro Detroit area. Okay. We'll just call it that. And I live in the sticks in the middle of North Carolina.
Right.
Totally different in what we need.
Absolutely.
To make our lifestyle and our retirement work. So you might need $1 million, but I might need half that. Or whatever, right? So focusing on that number, and we've talked about it before, is not the ideal way to do it. Focus on the income, right? What do you need to generate to make the plan work?
Right. And that's at the end of the day, what it comes down to is what's your number shouldn't be about how much is in the accounts. It should be about what do I need for income?
Yeah.
That's the number you should focus on and make it a realistic number.
Right.
Because that's the whole other
$75,000 a month, Phil.
Oh yeah, I'm making $250 a year now, but I only think I need like $3,000 a month in retirement. I'm like, okay,
that's usually the norm, right? Yeah, it usually goes the other way, really short. Yeah.
So what are you planning on cutting out? I mean, you're going to stay at home, do nothing, and you have to have a realistic number from that aspect too. So
true. Okay. Number 3, overconfidence and rules of thumb. So we use the $1 million. Let's go with the 4% rule.
Yep.
So these are guidelines, right? So
4%, absolutely.
4% doesn't actually hold anymore. So there's been numerous studies that show that that's not the case.
Right.
So use it as a benchmark if you want to say, well, I need 40 grand a year based off the $1 million. Okay, fine. But then let's look at, the pros and cons to that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at rules of thumb, I mean, you hit it on the head. The rules of thumb are great. Exactly that, kind of that rule of thumb looking like this saying, I think it's about right. How would that work if you were building a house though? If you're going to do everything, I think that's about, 14 feet. What would that house look like?
It's supposed to be 14 and, 3/8, but 14 and a half will be fine.
Put them together and hammer it a little bit. It'll work. So,
exactly.
So rules of thumb are maybe a great place to start, especially when you're younger. Putting some perspective to it, it might give you some idea. But as you get closer to retirement, I would not use the rule of thumb. I mean, run the math. You have to understand, how does all this work? Is this really enough based on my specific scenario of income I need, sources of income I have, the taxes I'm going to pay, all the different components that go into it. So,
right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a great place to start. Just don't get too overconfident in the various rules of thumb out there. So,
well, it's like the rule of 100, right? The whole,
right.
how should you be invested? So if you're 60, then 60% should be safe and 40% should be, at risk. But that might be too much for you. 40% might be just way too problematic. It causes you way too much stress or whatever the case is. So it's a general guideline to say, okay, rule of 100 states I'm 60, blah, blah, blah. But then go through the process, find out the details, so that you can then tweak that specifically to get the right situation for you.
Right. And risk is another one of those big ones that, I mean, people, again, back to the market we're in today, people get very comfortable with it. It's like, oh yeah, this is, I'm a moderate aggressive investor, but I don't want to lose more than 5% though. It's like, wait a minute, we got to have a real discussion then, because those don't line up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to combine these last two, Phil, because I think they really kind of work hand in hand. So overconfidence in our own understanding of a product, so a financial product or a financial vehicle, and then our own decision-making process, right? I think they can kind of go hand in hand, because we might, do a cursory search on a financial product and go, well, you know what? I'm a smart person. I'm logical. So I've read a couple of things. I know what I'm doing. Right. And I think that's really when we get to, there's so many fine points to a lot of these retirement products. That's where overconfidence could bite us.
Absolutely. And I mean, not to knock anyone in their experience and their knowledge, in the investment world. I mean, I meet with a lot of very educated, smart people. Sure. Frankly, that have done a really good job getting to where they're at. Have a lot of engineers, so I mean, they understand math, and that's kind of their wheelhouse. But when you get to this side and you look at finances and retirement, it's a totally different game. I mean, we're back teaching our classes where we've got Social Security and taxes. I teach. My son-in-law teaches Medicare, and I can't tell you how many times after going through that class on Social Security and taxes, people come out and say, I had no idea that there was that many moving parts, that I had to think about all these different things, and, how this affects, how I claim Social Security is going to affect my taxes, which affects how I take distributions, and, I mean, all these different pieces. Yeah. So again, it's nothing wrong with admitting, I don't know, I need some help, Well, I mean, that's what we're here for as financial advisors, as a professional. So,
yeah, I mean, you're not going over to Ford and saying, "Hey, let me show you how to sculpt this car."
That's right.
The sculptors department, right? When they're not making them out of clay and whatnot, kind of getting the concepts together, because you don't sculpt. So, but what is it? I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so therefore I could do it.
That's right. Yeah, I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. There you go. That's a great one. So,
the overconfidence is, again, there's nothing wrong with being confident.
Right.
But there is a heck of a gear shift into retirement. And that's why you turn to professional, really just about any walk of life. Again, we can go with the car thing, whatever you want to go with. But at some point, the worst thing we do for ourselves is go to WebMD, right? We're all, we're all like quasi doctors, but then we realize, okay, something's wrong. I need to go actually see a professional.
Right.
And so that's the same kind of thing with a financial professional. Go see a professional, find out if what you've been doing is working, or do you need to make a change?
Is there some other options and things you're missing?
Yeah.
And that's really that first meeting, at least the way I structure it. That's the purpose of my first meeting, is to get to know that prospective client, see if there's a good fit. Do we mesh? Do they kind of see eye to eye on how we operate that kind of fits in with their scenario, and to look at their situation at a high level. And see, is there some opportunity? Do I think we can help them out? And the majority of the people we meet with typically do. I mean, when you start to look at the moving pieces, there's ways we can help restructure, especially on the tax side, and bring pretty significant improvements in stability to a plan. So there's, at the end of the day, don't be afraid to ask for help. The right advisor, it shouldn't cost you anything up front for the first meeting to at least kind of test the waters, see if, it's worth maybe taking another step and explore what that looks like. So,
Well, stability, I like that word. And we'll finish with that because I started getting my mom to go to the chiropractor. She's 80 and she's having some, some different little issues here and there. And she was a little hesitant about it. But after going for about a month now, I asked her how she's feeling. And she's like, I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely more stable when I walk. She's like, I definitely feel more confident walking. That's a win. She's like, I'd say 35% better. Yeah. Hey, at 80, that's a win. If she can walk, because she lives on her own. So if she can walk and be more stable and feel 35% more confident about her ability to get around her apartment, then that's great. That makes me feel better. Same kind of a thing, right? So obviously we want more confidence and retire than 35%, but confidence and stability goes a long way.
And that's really how you should be looking at the relationship with an advisor. I think many individuals working with advisors, especially leading up to retirement, it's more about performance. It's always performance. Are you outperforming the market? Performance is important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, forget the markets, because that maybe has nothing to do with your plan.
Right.
It really comes down to the plan. What is your plan, and are you on track to the plan? Because that's where you get into retirement, and then confidence. You have the confidence to know it's going to work.
Yeah.
Get together once a year, compare back to the plan. Are we on track? What's changed both in your life, in the markets and the tax world?
There you go.
You don't have all the answers, but at least you have strategies that you can, move back and forth and hedge against things as they come up. So
that's right. So confidence, good. Overconfidence, maybe not so much.
Yep.
So that's going to do it this week for us here on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, philstaxhacks.com. That's philstaxhacks.com. That's where you can find it all. Of course, you can also just type in Phil's Tax Hacks in any of those apps as well. And if you got some questions, reach out to Phil, 248-888-7530. You can find that on the screen there, 248-888-7530 if you're doing the audio form. And we'll see you next time, Phil. Thanks for hanging out with me. As always, I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
Have a good Halloween. We'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and other retirement facts.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.